In the 5th year after the car accident left me paralyzed, I signed up as an organ donor. Before my heart gave out, I called my mom to see her one last time. Lily, die early, don't go on being a burden. You never should have been clinging on to life in this world. After hanging up, I laughed. Because finally, I'd die just like she always wanted. But when my body showed up on the operating table, she lost her mind. Today is my birthday, sitting alone in my rented room-less wheelchair, just like every year. I am spending it by myself. Just like my mom said, my birth was disgusting, I don't deserve a birthday. In the dark room, there's this pressure in my chest I've never felt before, like something is swelling inside. After the accident, I signed the organ donation form, so I informed the staff there right away. As the pressure got worse, I realized things were coming to an end. It's a pain I've never known, like an invisible hand was squeezing my heart, making it hard to breathe. Each breath feels like inhaling icy needles piercing my lungs. I couldn't tell if I was sad or relieved. Memories of pain flashed by like a movie reel. The feeling in my body seemed to fade away. With the staff's help, I picked up my phone. My fingers slid over the screen, finally finding that familiar number. I knew it might be my last link to this world. When the call connected, it felt like my heart stopped. Hello, Lily, what is wrong with you? Why were you bothering me? My mom's voice sounded annoyed. Mom, I feel like I am going to die. My voice trembled but strangely calm. Her tone didn't change. Lily, what game are you playing now? Lying every day makes you happy? It is true, I gasped. The last word drained my energy. Fine, Lily, die soon, don't keep being a burden. You shouldn't have clung to life in this world. With that, the call was cut off, and in my last moments I laughed. I finally died as she wished. Shortly after my soul separated from my body, the staff arrived. My body was slumped in the wheelchair in the dark room, looking a bit eerie. They bowed 3 times to it, draped it with a Red Cross-covered sheet, then put it on a stretcher into the van. I thought I could finally leave this world, but a powerful force pulled me along with my body. As an organ donor, I'd go to whatever hospital needed me. Seeing familiar streets outside made me stir. The van stopped at a hospital entrance, a place I've dreamt of coming to more than once. This is where my mom works, the only place I knew to find her. Inside, the hospital was busy as ever, my invisible form moving through the crowd. I saw a familiar figure, someone unforgettable. She was smiling, as if some great joy had come. A doctor beside her was prepping for surgery. Wendy, you finally found a liver for Clara. A couple of young nurses chimed in. I heard the donor is the same age as Wendy's daughter. What a shame. Must be hard on the family. Wendy must really care for Clara, spending a lot to get this liver early. So lucky to have a mom like that, one nurse said while prepping tools. Aren't all parents like that? They want their kids healthy, said another. My mom, with a growing smile, chatted along. Yeah, every parent loves their kid. I laughed bitterly, my ethereal heart still ached. But Mom, wasn't I your daughter? She was texting Clara, labeled Precious Daughter. The name switched to useless as a call from her husband came, and she stepped out, reminding them to be careful. I followed the staff into the dissection room full of medical tools, under cold lights, spotting my own body. They began prepping my surgery. Seeing the nurses, I realized my liver was for Clara. In life and death, I couldn't escape that name. That was my mom's first love's daughter. Mom's first love had poor prospects, so my grandparents were against it. My dad liked my mom too, and courted the family with gifts, TVs, and fancy goodies back then. So my folks' marriage was basically arranged. My dad was devoted, but Mom never appreciated it. Those were my happiest childhood days. Then a factory explosion took Dad's life. Mom didn't hesitate to divorce and leave. Surprisingly, she took me. I thought it meant she cared, but learned later, she didn't want me happy. She transferred her hate for Dad onto me. I wasn't allowed near Dad's family. I obeyed, never contacting my grandparents, fearing her wrath. In the cold dissection room, I watched as the doctors made the first incision on my body. I felt oddly calm. My thoughts drifted back to childhood. I remember Dad's warm smile greeting me, while Mom stood coldly aside. I'd try to grab her hand with my tiny one, longing for her warmth, but she'd always shake me off. Mom, why were you always like this? I naively ask. She just silently watched me, her eyes filled with a complex mix of emotions. Now I get it. Her heart was full of hate towards Dad and me. She poured all her resentment onto me, leaving me to grow up feeling lonely and helpless. And when Clara showed up, the resentment only got worse. My legs became paralyzed just when I started college. At that time, my mom took Clara shopping for new clothes while I was the one carrying their bags. While crossing the street, a car came straight at me. I was hit and thrown a few meters away. At that moment, I felt an unimaginable pain. Then everything went blurry. I saw my mom and Clara casually walking toward me. Clara wrinkled her nose at my bloody clothes and muttered, "Now how am I supposed to wear this?" My mom glanced at me with disdain, and then turned to Clara with a soft look. "No worries, sweetie, we'll just go buy some more." Geez, it's so bad luck taking you out. That was the last thing I heard before I passed out. I didn't stay in the hospital long after the accident. They found nothing seriously wrong with my body, but my legs slowly went numb, and sometimes I'd lose control over my bladder. When I realized something was wrong, I hoped my mom would take me to get checked out. Instead, she snapped at me, calling me a useless drain, an energy vampire. "You're just like your dad, always out to con me," she yelled. I was humiliated, but Clara was just standing there, arms folded, enjoying the show. I got so upset I wet myself. Clara shrieked in disgust, looking at me with a scrunched-up face. In my darkest moment, Clara's scream pierced the air full of disdain. I looked at her twisted face and felt an unspeakable despair. My tears fell uncontrollably, yet no one consoled me or even wanted to come near me. My mom's eyes were wide, looking at my pathetic state. Her face was a mix of emotions. "You're disgusting. Get him out of here, Mom," Clara demanded. My mom slapped me hard across the face, telling me to clean up the mess. Swallowing my tears of humiliation, I cleaned everything up bit by bit. Later, my mom got a big settlement from the driver, but only gave me $500 to move out and live on my own. That was just enough to rent a tiny room converted from a garage. In that cold room, I went through the toughest days after the accident. $500 was quite a sum at the time, but it didn't bring any warmth. It only made me realize how much I don't belong in this world. The kind landlady felt sorry for me and lowered the rent to $300, eventually going down to $100. Days passed and my condition worsened. I lost all control over my body, facing shame and despair every time it happened. I tried asking my mom to take me to the hospital, but her response crushed all hope. "Useless, a total drain," she spat. "You deserve this." In my most desperate times, I thought about ending it all. I wondered if she'd feel any regret or sadness. But in truth, she might even be relieved to finally be free of me. I worked hard to keep my dignity, tidying my room spotless. But no matter how hard I tried, the stink rooted itself in me. In that rundown garage, I fought my illness alone while my mom and Clara lived in the lap of luxury in the big house my dad left us. Clara's room overflowed with pricey toys and clothes while I was stuck with worn-out clothes and a second-hand wheelchair bought with the $500. Mom doted on Clara, who could do no wrong, while I felt completely unimportant. Every time, it stabbed my heart like needles. Just 6 months after my dad's passing, I watched Clara running around the garden. Her laughter was joyful and carefree. I couldn't help but call out to her, hoping maybe, just maybe, my mom would be kinder if I got along with Clara. "Clara, want to play with me?" I asked calmly as I could. Clara stopped, looking at me with annoyance. "Where'd this filthy thing come from? You think you can play with me?" Funny how everything she had was from my dad. As my condition got worse, I started passing out frequently, losing control of myself. Once, I collapsed near home, and a passerby took me to the hospital. Mom showed no concern when alerted, even telling the doctor, "Why bother saving her? She should have been dead." The doctor was shocked, while I lay in bed, tears blurring my vision. I so wished she'd show a bit of care or love, but I knew that was a lost cause. In the last phase of my life, I stopped trying to reach out to her. I knew Clara was all she cared about. I'm just a nuisance. My organ donation was my final wish. I wanted at least a part of me to continue living on in this world. What I didn't expect was my liver ending up with Clara. I envied her so much. Why does everything seem to go her way? I watched as my liver got extracted and prepared for Clara. Mom didn't participate in the transplant, but performed Clara's surgery herself. She took the liver, paused for a moment, and I thought for a second maybe, just maybe she felt something. But nothing changed. She went all in on the surgery, and you could tell she was nervous. When it was over, she sighed, wiped her sweat, and changed to visit Clara in the recovery room. Just then my mom's phone rang. It was the landlord calling. I just remembered I haven't paid the rent this month. Hello, Lily's mom. Lily hasn't paid her rent this month. I tried to enter the room, but nobody's there, and I can't reach her. I'm worried. The landlady spoke gently. Enough. Her business ain't mine. If she hasn't paid, just toss her stuff out and let her sleep on the street. Don't bother me with her issues. Hearing my name, my mom started yelling. The landlady was about to say more, but my mom harshly cut the call. Such bad luck. My mom muttered under her breath. Then she picked up her phone and messaged me. It was the first time she initiated contact. You jinx, if you wanna die, die sooner than later, don't mess with my life. Pay the rent ASAP. If she comes to me again, don't expect a penny from me. Just rot out there. She forgot that she hadn't given her share of $500 in ages. After sending the message, she tossed her phone onto the table. Hey, did you hear? That liver for Wendy's kid came from a paralyzed girl, living all alone in a garage, so pitiful. How could her parents be so heartless? Maybe she's an orphan, so sad. A bunch of nurses were chatting outside, making my mom suddenly look up, froze, and then shook her head. She reached for her phone and noticed an organ donation agreement underneath it. She glanced at it and panicked when she saw the signature at the bottom. Lily. Those 3 letters hit her hard. Her hand shook holding the agreement. No way, can't be. It's just someone with the same name. Lily's tough. A car accident wouldn't kill her. No way, no way. The paper slipped from her hands, making a rustling sound. She froze for a second and hurriedly bent down to pick it up. She stared at those 3 letters, like they could reveal something. A nurse walked in and seeing her, got startled. Wendy, are you okay? The nurse asked. She shook her head and forced a smile. Nothing, just a bit tired. She stuffed the agreement into a drawer, then stumbled out of the office. My invisible self followed her, watching her panicked expression, feeling a strange wave of emotion. She arrived outside Clara's room, paused for a bit, then entered with a conflicted look. Mom, what is wrong? Is there an issue with my surgery? Clara noticed her expression and asked anxiously. My mom forced a smile, patting Clara's hand softly. No, sweetie. Your surgery went well. I am just a little worn out. Clara looked puzzled, a bit nervous. Mom, I heard people saying Lily found a rich guy abroad and is living it up. No one can get in touch with her. She's always posting on social media, so full of herself. My mom frowned, eyeing Clara suspiciously. Really? Clara nodded fiercely. Look. She showed a photo of me overseas. If I didn't know I never left the country, I'd believe it. The photo looked real, not a hint of tampering. My mom glanced at the photo, confusion flickering, but determination soon took over. She has always been good at lying and scheming. My mom replied coldly. Clara, seeing my mom's reaction, smiled smugly. Yeah, how could she be paralyzed? If she were, she'd already be bugging me for money. My mom murmured, like convincing herself to stay calm. On Clara's phone screen, that photo was glaring. Her smile widened, eyes filled with blatant glee. Mom, I've always said Lily, a fraud, always trying to mooch off us. Look, she still has the nerve to enjoy abroad. Clara's voice dripped with mean sarcasm. In the following days, Clara kept bad-mouthing me to my mom, making up stories to convince her. Mom, you saw? Lily is posting luxury stuff online. She's a nobody, trying to act like she is rich. She is just angling for your money. Clara ranted. She scrutinized Clara's phone photos and posts, and they looked so real, convincing even. And remember her paralyzed story from the accident, Mom? I'm telling you, she faked it. She just wanted compensation. She even tricked the driver. He's wrapped around her finger now. Clara continued. Paralyzed. What? My mom seized on the word, eyes wide. Clara realized her mistake. Oh no. I mean incontinent, not paralyzed. She wasn't paralyzed. My mom's face was strange, deep in thought. After calming Clara down, she took a couple of deep breaths when her phone rang. Hello, this is the Organ Donation Center. Is this MS? Lily's mother? My mom softly replied yes. Your daughter's organs were successfully donated, and her selfless love is greatly appreciated. Her body is at West City Hospital now. Can you claim her remains? My mom almost dropped her phone, Clara's words sowing doubt in her mind. But before she could speak, the hospital relayed Candy, our liaison doctor's contact info. She didn't know who to believe, but the answer was clear. She silently hung up and headed toward the morgue. The morgue was dim, casting a cold white glow. Staring at the body there, doubts filled her heart. Slowly she walked over, her lips pressed tight, like instinct drew her right to my body. Mom stood in front of my body, taking a deep breath, her eyes flickering with mixed emotions. Slowly, she reached out, almost touching my cheek, but pulled back at the last second. Fear and confusion were etched in her gaze as she paced back and forth, muttering, "No way, no way." Finally, she lifted the white sheet, and my pale face was revealed. She froze the moment she saw me, tears trickling down her cheeks, filled with sorrow as if her soul had been wrenched out, sinking into deep confusion and pain. I found it puzzling. Didn't she hate me? Why isn't she happy now that I am gone? Just then the door opened, and a nurse walked in, startled to see my mom standing there. Wendy, what are you doing here? Are you all right? The nurse asked with concern. My mom snapped back to reality, quickly wiping her tears, forcing a smile. I am fine, I am fine. I just remembered something. The nurse looked worried, but chose to leave quietly. She slowly knelt on the ground, covering her face with her hands as her shoulders shook violently. I watched her, recalling the brief moments of kindness from my childhood, like fleeting warmth, perhaps the only solace in my life. Mom, am I really that annoying? I'd asked her silently many nights. She never answered, just turned away, refusing to look at me. Now, when she looks at me, it's me who can't bear to look back. It can't be. You're tough. It is not possible, she said, her voice trembling, as if convincing herself, or maybe pleading with me. Suddenly, something seemed to occur to her, and she uncovered the sheet again. My legs were unfortunately shriveled. How could this be? But Clara said, how? Her eyes turned cold for a moment as she walked out of the morgue, her steps faltering as if all strength had drained from her body. Her eyes seemed hollow now, face streaked with tears, yet she paid them no mind. She made her way to the hospital corridor, bustling with people, but to her, it all felt like a scene from another world. Leaning against the wall, she inhaled deeply, trying to gather her thoughts. Thinking back on what Clara had told her, she turned into Clara's hospital room. Clara, tell me, has Lily really been paralyzed? My mom's voice shook, desperately seeking an answer. Clara was caught off guard, hesitating before saying, Mom, how should I know? That is what I heard. Wasn't she faking it for compensation? Shut up. My mom's voice suddenly rose, cutting off Clara's words in anger. Shut up and tell me the truth. Clara was taken aback, hurriedly explaining, Mom, I truly don't know. Realizing her agitation, my mom took a deep breath. Sorry, Clara, I got a bit worked up. Clara looked pale, nervously glancing at my mom, unsure of what to say. My mom inhaled deeply, striving to calm down, sitting by the bed, her voice steady, but her gaze remained sharp. Tell me, were you aware of Lily's situation? Clara hesitated, then nodded. Yes, I knew. But she was always tricking us. She was never paralyzed. Just wanted compensation. But why pretend for compensation? My mom asked. Clara bit her lip, saying, I don't know. Maybe she was desperate. Clara's uneasy explanation stirred doubt in Mom's heart, perhaps questioning her precious daughter for the first time. For the next few days, my mom secretly investigated the events of the past, unbeknownst to Clara. Going through piles of old records, my mom slowly unraveled. She discovered my hospital records. To spare my mom the worry, I'd been undergoing conservative treatment at a different hospital. Seeing the note about me voluntarily ceasing treatment due to costs made her eyes tremble. She visited my rented place for the first time, It was also the landlady's first time seeing my mom. The landlady didn't show kindness, and my mom said nothing. Lily was a good girl, such a pity, was the last thing the landlady said to my mom. There was a notebook always on my desk, the only reward my mom had given me as a child. I remember it was because I did well on a test. A notebook her work gave her in a good mood, and she gave it to me offhandedly. That notebook contained so much, including things my mom and Clara had said to me. My mom turned its pages with trembling hands, the words barely legible, but she recognized them. Mom, why are you always like this to me? Because you a drain, like your father, always deceitful. Mom, I am so sad. Why don't you like me? I looked at her, her gaze filled with guilt and pain. She seemed regretful, regretting her cruelty toward me. But it was too late. I never meant for you to die. I just hated your dad. Mom was sobbing, struggling for breath. Because of this investigation, the car accident from back then resurfaced. Faced with all the evidence, my mom's hands trembled, releasing agonized cries. She collapsed on the floor, vacant eyes murmuring, "How is this possible?" The driver from back then was a distant relative of Clara's family. All this because Clara wanted to inherit my dad's assets. My existence complicated things. That driver was heavily in debt from gambling, and Clara orchestrated a plan, eventually succeeding beyond her expectations. My dad's factory explosion was due to Clara's father's negligence, and surprisingly he survived. My mom always treated her dear daughter like a treasure. She never thought that same daughter was plotting against her. She felt like a puppet with its strings cut. In the chat logs, Clara openly called my mom a dimwit. The most suffocating part for my mom was finding out that her significant other, Ken, Clara's father, never even got a divorce. Their whole family was living off my mom's resources. My mom had no idea this was happening. After she learned the truth, she was entirely devastated. Her eyes became wild, and she started laughing hysterically. "Ha ha ha, everyone is deceiving me. My Lily, you shouldn't have died. They should have. Ha ha ha, Lily, wait for me." Her laughter was chilling. The next day, she took Clara on a supposed trip. Once in the wilderness, she injected Clara with a strong anesthetic. Then she tied her up in the middle of the road. In that moment, she looked possessed, like a demon from hell. Clara woke up disoriented and realized she was bound on the road. Frantically, she looked around for help, but her voice was too weak to be heard. My mom watched her coldly, sneering, "Clara, did you think you were smart?" Then my mom repeatedly drove over Clara's legs. Clara's eyes filled with terror, and soon she couldn't make a sound. Under the effects of powerful stimulants, her eyes were bloodshot, and the intense pain led to a nervous shock. After my body was cremated, my mom buried me. At the cemetery, as she cleaned my tombstone, she said, "I'm sorry, Lily. I wasn't a good mother. I got stuck in my own issues. When I heard about your death, I realized I didn't hate you. I realized how much I owed you. It's too late to say anything now, Lily. Wait for me." In the end, she turned herself in, and after getting released, she chose to end her own life. My spirit slowly faded away, but I think I'll never forgive her. The end.